بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وبعد. So we left off last class with the explanation of the first poem in Diwan al-Mutanabbi that begins with القلب أعلم يا عذول بدائه. And this poem was written by Abu Dhar Sahl ibn Muhammad al-Katib. And as we stated in the second class, al-Mutanabbi was asked to yujiza abiyat Abi Dhar, meaning he was requested to continue the poem, making sure that the poem that he produces, him being a mutanabbi, making sure that the poem that he produces is on the same scale as the previous poem, the same scale of the poem of Abu Dhar. It should also match his theme, and it should match the eloquence or surpass it. And so Abu Dhar, he produced this poem which begins with القلب أعلم يا عذول بدائه. And in this particular poem, we witnessed Abu Dhar speaking on behalf of the heart, where he says القلب أعلم يا عذول بدائه. This emphatic statement speaking on behalf of the heart, indicating that the qalb is أعلم بدائه وأحق بجفنه وبمائه. And in the poem, the poet continues to speak on behalf of the heart, where he says, فَوَمَنْ أُحِبُّ لَأَعْصِيَنَّكَ فِي الْهَوَى قَسَمًا بِهِ وَبِحُسْنِهِ وَبَهَائِهِ. All speaking on behalf of the heart. And he continues, أُحِبُّهُ وَأُحِبُّ فِيهِ مَلَامَةً إِنَّ الْمَلَامَةَ فِيهِ مِنْ أَعْدَائِهِ. Then he goes on to explain how one assists an individual who's in his predicament, how one assists someone who is being afflicted and tested with his heart, with love, where he says, ما الخل إلا من أود بقلبه وأرى بطرف لا يرى بسوائه إن المعين على الصبابة بالأسى أولى برحمة ربها وإخائه مهلا فإن العذل من أسقامه وترفقا فالسمع من أعضائه وهب الملامة في اللذاذة كالكرى مطرودة بسهاده وبكائه لا تعذل المشتاق في أشواقه حتى يكون حشاك في أحشائه. He then proceeds to discuss or to talk about what the actual essence of the poem is, which is al-madh, which is praising Sayf al-Dawla. And Abu Dhar, in his attempt to praise Sayf al-Dawla, he kind of slighted him as well, where he stated وقي الأمير هوى العيون فإنه ما لا يزول ببأسه وسخائه, where he's praying that the Amir is not afflicted with what he was afflicted with. Why? Because he would not be able to overcome it with his ba's or his sakha. Why? Because as he continues, he said, يستأثر البطل الكمي بنظرة ويحول بين فؤاده وعزائه. And then the remainder of the poem, he is praising Sayf al-Dawla, where he says, إني دعوتك للنوائب دعوة لم يدعى سامعها إلى أكفائه. So as we can see, the poem begins with an emphatic statement, with the poet speaking on behalf of the heart. The poem written by Al-Mutanabbi, he also begins with an emphatic statement. But instead of speaking on behalf of the heart, he states عذل العواذل حول قلب التائه وهوى الأحبة منه في سودائه. So in this introduction, he is painting a picture of something that is emphatic, that does not change. And this is what we indicated in one of the previous classes, where we said that a sentence which is الجملة الإسمية is a sentence that تدل على الثبوت, that it indicates something that does not change, it is stable, it is fixed. So he says عاذل العواذل حول قلب التائه وهوى الأحبة منه في سودائه. And so we said that we would highlight the words in the verses that were covered before, either in the poem or in the verses of the poem, or if they were discussed or covered in the form of the synonym, so possible synonyms of the word. So we have come across adlu and al-awadi. We came across qalb, hawa al-ahibba. And so the first word that we see here that is new, relatively new, is the word ta. Taha yatihu. And a ta'ih is someone who is bewildered, perplexed, lost, and it could also mean arrogant. And this is a word that is mentioned in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the people of the Bani Israel, tahu, وَكَانُوا يَتِيهُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And we understand that they كانوا يتيهون, that they were walking sort of aimlessly, bewildered, perplexed, lost, not able to find their way out of that particular location. In this sense here, Al-Mutanabbi could also assume the meaning of arrogant, and this is not surprising in the poems of Al-Mutanabbi, because he, like we said, he has his Arabic and his linguistic skills far surpassed many of his contemporaries. He also challenged the people who were actually hujjah of the Arabic language, in the form of the uh, the people who lived in the time of Al Jahiliyyah. And so Al Mutanabbi, using this word ta'ih, he could have used a lot of different other words if he wanted to just indicate that they were lost, or that the heart is in fact lost. But Mutanabbi also embodies a lot of the characters that he speaks about in some of his poems. And so what I believe, and what some of the those individuals who explain the Diwan of al-Mutanabbi, um, very few, obviously, in fact, who hold this meaning that the word is arrogant, and I also share this understanding as well. So he says, عذل العواذل حول قلب التائه وهوى الأحبة منه في سودائه. Sauda is literally blackness or darkness, and in this context it refers to, metaphorically, to the heart or the core of one's existence. So المتنبي says here عذل العواذل حول قلب التائه وهوى الأحبة منه في سودائه. So he's saying that the reproaches of the critics, so the critics who intend to reproach him, their actual reproach revolves around the perplexed and arrogant heart. And so this visualization is very, very powerful. He's essentially giving a body, giving shape to the words that come out of the mouth of those individuals who reproach him. So it's as if when the reproachers tell him something like, stop, stop, دع ما براك ضعفت عن إخفائه. ضع ما براك, as mentioned by Abu Dhar, ضعفت عن إخفائه, which is what they said to to the poet in terms of him leaving off that which hurts him, that which harms him. Um, and so those actual words, we can envision them being having an actual body, and then having also a mind. So the approaches of the critics, it revolves around the heart. So imagine those words are surrounding the heart, and those words are unable to penetrate it while the love of his beloved has settled deep within his heart, deep within his core. سودائه في سودائه. So his heart remains unmoved by their blame, making it inconceivable for the reproacher to dissuade him from his love. His beloved resides deeply and firmly within his heart's core. سودائه, immovable by the external blame of the reproacher. Their criticism merely revolves around the periphery of his heart and cannot affect the love entrenched within. So after making an emphatic statement where he says عذر العواذل حول قلب التائه وحوى الأحبة منه في سودائه, where he paints a very, very distinct, very vivid picture of words coming out of an individual's mouth, taking a body, having a brain, and hovering around this impenetrable heart. Now he uses this second verse to add more clarity and add more color and add more imagery, where he says يشكو الملام إلى اللوائم حره ويصد حين يلمن عن برحائه. And so the word that stands out in this particular verse is buraha. Buraha means extreme mental or physical suffering. So we notice here he uses the fi'l mudari' or the present tense verb يشكو. يشكو الملام إلى اللوائم حره. And he uses this present tense verb because he wants you to actually live in this moment, live in the moment of this actual verb happening. So عذل العواذل حول قلب التائه. This action we know is fixed, so he set the scene with the first verse. And now he's giving action. So there's movement taking place. What is the movement that's taking place in this particular verse, in this particular scene? Is يشكو الملام إلى اللوائم حره. The blame itself, الملام, the blame itself, يشكو. So it's as if we can see the blame complaining to the ones that sent him. Who are the ones who sent him? The reproachers. So the blame itself, the words that came out of the mouth of the reproacher, those words are complaining to the reproacher. They're complaining to him. Why are they complaining? حره. يشكو الملام إلى اللوائم حره. حر what? حر القلب. ويصد حين يلمن عن برحائه. And so when the blame is directed at him, it avoids addressing the agony and intense heat in his heart caused by love. His heart does not accept the blame. It doesn't accept the blame at all. And blame itself cannot endure the heat that's emanating from his heart. ويصد حين يلمن عن برحائه. When blame approaches his heart, it burns due to its heat. So it turns away and returns to the reproacher. The blame, the actual words that have come out of his mouth. They've come out of his mouth, they've entered the ear, they've entered the brain comprehends. When it tries to reach the heart, it's not possible for it to reach the heart. It turns away to the reproaches, complaining to them of the severity of its suffering. It's as if the heat of his heart repels blame from them. So we'll stop here today and we'll pick it up next class with the next verse.